Peace, family. Y'all know who it is. It's Picard Lumumba, back once again, the progenitor of LumumbaSpeaks.com, a Black empowerment initiative where we believe we could gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black. Back once again with another live stream where we're going to be looking to have a intellectually robust conversation regarding Steve Harvey and his wife and Metro Boomin. What I believe is incentivizing dysfunctionality in the Black community by saying that single mothers are superheroes. So we're going to have this conversation, but I got to go over the ground rules as always. As you all know, I welcome diversity of thought. If you have a worldview or perspective that is different than my own, I do not take issue with that. However, I do require that you do not provide alternative facts. So you could bring a different perspective, but we're going to deal with factual information. Number two, you can't use a racial epithet of any kind when describing any Black person, irrespective of their place of origin or their current geographical location. Number three, facts over feelings. As we all know, I say every time on the show, facts over feelings. And of course, number four, if you make a claim that's patently false, I will shut you down. For example, if you were to make the argument that Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar were the best players in the world, no problem. But if you were to state that Michael Jordan only won one championship, then of course that would be something in which I would cut you off. So with that being said, I'm going to put the link in the chat, and we're going to get things crack-a-lacking, percolating, whatever term you would like to use, regarding, excuse me, are Steve Harvey and Metro Boomin, by stating that single moms are superheroes, are they incentivizing dysfunctionality? So I'm going to actually read the press release for you all. If you're watching, make sure you hit the thumbs up button, thumbs up, as well as hit the subscribe and like button. So as you can see here, this is on BET.com. They say Metro Boomin launches Single Moms Are Superheroes initiative with Steve and Marjorie Harvey. So as you can see here, single moms are superheroes. This is the initiative that they've launched. So we're going to get into why I believe this is promoting this dysfunctionalism, right? Dysfunctionality in the Black community. Of course, many people may take umbrage with that. Many people may argue that I am simply seeking to speak ill of single mothers, maybe even engaging in misogyny. So we'll be able to deconstruct all of that. So here we go. Metro Boomin is using his platform and resources to help celebrate single mothers with a new initiative. Introduced during the Atlanta Falcons game on Sunday, December 4th. So this is a week ago. The mega producer Single Moms Are Superheroes is a partnership with the Steve and Marjorie Harvey Foundation, and treated 26 mothers and their children to a VIP game experience at Atlanta's game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. In addition to covering the family's travel expenses nationwide and providing tickets to the game, Metro also arranged for his guests to access Mercedes-Benz Stadium through the players' tunnel ahead of the game's kickoff. The moms and their children got a chance to be on the field with both teams for the national anthem. The goal is to spotlight and celebrate single mothers, extending the Steve and Marjorie Harvey Foundation's work to provide them with resources and support. Single Moms Are Superheroes is an important initiative to Metro Boomin, who tragically lost his mother, Leslie Wayne, earlier this year after her husband allegedly shot and killed her and then himself. Wayne raised Metro along with three other siblings and was a very early supporter of his music. On her birthday in 2019, he gifted her a birthday purse and a passenger seat of a car, calling her the biggest inspiration. The platinum producer also released his latest album, Heroes and Villains, on December 2nd, featuring 30 tracks comprised of the original 15 songs with instrumental versions of each track. So there you have it. So I would give my take on this situation. And I'm going to start off with some old wisdom. We know Fannie Lou Hamer taught us many years ago when she was leading the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party to never forget where you come from and always praise the bridges that carried you over. And I can recall my grandfather always saying that you never reward bad behavior. With that being said, I understand that there are a number of ways that women can become single mothers. I met some single mothers. Obviously, I've probably met two in my lifetime who were single mothers as a result of the fact that they were a widow. We could think of Malcolm X's Betty Shabazz was a single mother due to being a widow, right? However, with that being said, I think it's important that we deconstruct this concept and idea. Unfortunately, I would argue that what we tend to find today, particularly amongst the media and celebrities, is that there is an incentivizing of dysfunctionality in the Black community. I've always talked about, of course, here at Lumumba Speaks, we are a Black Empowerment Initiative. We believe that we could gain a competitive advantage by what? Always betting on Black. However, with that being said, we've also tend to find that when we're looking to empower ourselves, it's very easy for us to speak out against some of the external forces that tend to aspire to what? Prohibit Black progress, right? But it's seldom that we find individuals looking to what? Address internal forces that tend to what? Inhibit Black progress. I would argue that incentivizing dysfunctionalism in the Black community, I would make the argument, this is rather provocative, but I'm going to say it and I'm going to stand on it. And that is that in our community, single mothers are given more praise and more respect, and they're revered more than women who are wives and mothers. If you listen to any song, shout out to the single mothers, right? I can recall this baby was 13, 14 years ago. I was on a planning committee for a citywide Kwanzaa celebration. Shout out to everyone who's celebrating Kwanzaa. We know what's coming up in about 15 days. And what ended up taking place and transpiring was there was a sister there who was a single mother. And she said, well, can we do a salute to single mothers? And of course, the elder said, no. He said, that's not the model that we're trying to promote to our community. The model is a two-parent household, right? And so the sister got quiet. But I say that to say that many people have become accustomed to pedestalizing dysfunctional behavior. And I think this is something that we need to get away from. And so I'm hoping that we can have an intellectually robust conversation regarding, is the Single Moms or Superheroes initiative that was put together by Metro Boomin and Steve Harvey. Is this an example of incentivizing dysfunctionality in the Black community? So as I stated before, I always say this, you come on, be part of the conversation. You do not have to cam up to be part of the conversation. Once again, you do not have to cam up to be part of the conversation, and you can use a pseudonym. So you don't have to use your actual name. You can use a pseudonym if you would like to come in, be part of the conversation regarding this initiative in which they're saying single moms are superheroes. I think it's also important to state that we know that 80% of our marriages are initiated by women. So we could make a great an argument that, unfortunately, we see many women choosing to be single mothers. I have a very close friend of mine who, unfortunately, is a divorcee, and they had 2 children. And just out the blue, hey, I don't want to be together anymore. Wants a divorce. She's a single mother. She's struggling financially, and now she expects a pat on the back, even though she put herself in the situation in which she's a single mother. And so I think the other issue that we need to really interrogate is, what does it say about men? Because we know, unfortunately, oftentimes the narrative regarding women are single mothers is because I appreciate Brother Design for that, brother. I appreciate that $1.99, no doubt. Tap in, be part of the conversation. I would love to get your perspective. Make sure if you're watching, you subscribe, like, and share. But I think this is the major issue. We know oftentimes in our community, because our community is a matriarchal community, it's not a patriarchal community, oftentimes, unfortunately, the behavior of our sisters goes unchecked. We just gotta call a spade a spade. If we're really about Black empowerment, if we're truly about restoring our people to our traditional greatness, sometimes you have to call a spade a spade. And as a result, we also know that children exponentially are more likely to be victims of physical or sexual abuse when they grow up in a single parent household led by the mom, right? And there are a number of reasons for this. We may get into that if we get some people in, we can have the robust conversation. But to incentivize and celebrate individuals who, I would dare say, more often than not, are doing things in a manner that is not in the best interest, not only of the children, but in the community as a whole, I think is extremely problematic. And it incentivizes dysfunctionality. I would argue that these are issues that are promoted through the media and through many Black celebrities, right? We know that Steve Harvey has come out with a litany of books and movies regarding trying to give women advice about how to go about in relationships, so on and so forth. We know that even on his talk show, he has a segment, Ask Steve, and he kind of, in my opinion, in the same realm as Derrick Jackson, tells women what they want to hear, even though it tends to have no real world capabilities attached to what he's telling them. I would argue that to incentivize women to be single mothers by celebrating them, by rewarding bad behavior, does our community a disservice. And I would give an example. We know that unfortunately, oftentimes, if a woman is a single mother, even though there have been some cases where this doesn't happen, but oftentimes if a woman is a single mother, the children, statistically, the statistics show that the family would struggle financially. We also know the children who do not grow up with their father, not the boyfriend, not a stepdad, but actual father in the home, have a higher likelihood of what? Being the victims of physical or sexual abuse. There's a higher likelihood, exponentially higher likelihood that they would have what? Behavioral problems, that they would become involved in the criminal justice system, right? And so we see that all of the factors that come as a result of this type of household are negative, right? But yet it's being celebrated. So as I said before, the link is in the chat. Come on, tap in, be part of this conversation. I definitely, keyword is definitely want to hear what you all have to say about Steve Harvey, Metro Boomin, saying single moms are superheroes. I argue they're incentivizing dysfunctionality. We know, Brother Design, I appreciate you. You said no lies told. And the issue is, and I tell people, growing up, and I was lucky. So full disclosure, I was lucky to grow up in a patriarchal household. I was lucky to grow up in a household in which to this day, my parents have been married 45 years, right? So every day I woke up, growing up, I saw my father and I saw my mother. I saw a healthy union. I never saw my parents argue. I never saw my parents be disrespectful towards one another. I never saw my parents engage in behavior that I believe was unbecoming or even have the hint of impropriety, particularly when it comes to what? Fidelity. So I was lucky enough to grow up and see a functional Black family. I know many people would argue, particularly those who are so-called pro-Black activists, would make the argument that the nuclear family is anti-African. And I disagree with that. I think that we understand that culture is fluid, not static, and that we have to be able to adjust to changing circumstances without losing our substance or essence. This is what Dr. Melania Corina calls adaptive vitality. Also, I think it's important that we understand that when we talk about this concept of the nuclear family and that this is something that alien African people, and this originated in the hills of Europe, in the wilds of Europe, particularly during the Industrial Revolution, we know that that isn't true. If you study African history, we know that ancient Kemet, there were what? Nuclear families. Ethiopia, nuclear families. The great Western Sudanic empires of Ghana, Songhai, and Mali, there were nuclear families. Sometimes these families were polygamous in nature, but they were nuclear, right? So this whole idea and concept of somehow Black men and Black women coming together, having children, and then staying together, be somehow alien to us and something that we aren't able to, of course, is something that is ahistorical from a classical standpoint and even from a contemporary standpoint, because we know that from Reconstruction up until the 1960s, 80% of Black children grew up in a two-parent household. So this idea and concept that's being disseminated directly or even indirectly that somehow, some way, shape, or form, Black people are unable to form healthy family units is 100%, in my opinion, malarkey, right? So with that being said, the link is in the chat. The link is also in the description. Tap in and be part of the conversation. We're having a conversation regarding incentivizing dysfunctionality. Steve Harvey, Metro Boomin, saying single moms are superheroes. They created an initiative to celebrate single mothers. I believe this is extremely problematic. We know that we've seen, particularly individuals who are in these YouTube streets, a litany, keyword, a litany of individuals, content channels where women are coming on and arguing that they have a family even though the father's not in the picture. We know that this is unhealthy. We also know that if you want to use the analogy of boxing, which of course I'm a huge fan of, shout out to Terrence Crawford for taking care of his business last night. It's like going into a boxing match with one hand tied behind your back. We know that children are less likely to engage in what? Deviant behavior. And I can recall even during my days in undergrad, I took a class on social deviance. But children are less likely to engage in deviant behavior in a two-parent household. Why? Because that child, with both parents in the home, the child has a smaller amount of time in which they would be unsupervised. Right? We also know that mothers tend to what? What's the word I want to use? Negotiate discipline rather than fathers who tend to what? Implement discipline. I can recall my days growing up, and if my brother and sister are watching, they can speak to this as well, to where growing up, if something happened, our mother would tell us, I'm gonna let your dad know when he gets home, right? And we'd be like, hey, no, you don't have to tell him, because our father's perspective was, if your mom is telling me this, obviously she wants me to do something about it. So, as I stated before, would love for you all to tap in, be part of the conversation. You do not have to cam up, as I've already stated. And then, of course, you could use a pseudonym if you want to maintain your anonymity. So definitely looking to have a robust, intellectually stimulating conversation regarding Steve Harvey and Metro Boomin, saying single mothers are superheroes. Does this type of initiative, pedestalization, incentivize dysfunctionality? What say you? Tap in, be part of the conversation. The link is in the chat as well as in the description. So we're going to have to get this conversation crack-a-lacking. And I want to know what you all think, what you all have to say. Now, definitely want to see what you all have to say, because I think this is a conversation that needs to be had in our community. If we're going to be able to take that step forward, seeking to restore ourselves to our traditional greatness, rebuild our communities and our own image, we have to start with, I believe, is the most important institution in the community, and that is the family unit. So definitely tap in, be part of the conversation, and we want to know. But a design, you've been a great supporter. You tap in on a regular basis. I would love for you to tap in, brother. Once again, you don't have to cam up and give your perspective on this initiative that's been created. I make the argument, and I think I've said this a number of times, that I believe in the Black community that single mothers are pedestalized and giving, or almost worship and given adoration over women who are wives and mothers, right? So women who are doing things the right way, they receive no attention, right? However, women who, of course, are doing things the wrong way, quote unquote, tend to be pedestalized and supported and admired, right? So I think this is something that we definitely have to look at, and I may even do a live on, is the Black community inherently dysfunctional or dysfunctional in nature? So with that being said, like I said before, the link is in the chat. The link is in the chat. The link is in the description. Let's get down and dirty here and have a conversation regarding Steve Harvey and Metro Boomin saying that single moms are superheroes. And then, of course, we can have a conversation regarding the multitude of ways that women can become single mothers. But I would dare say that nowadays, I think a lot of women become single mothers by choice. And I would dare say and argue, in the words of the godfather of the manosphere, Kevin Samuels, that oftentimes it's for narcissistic reasons. I can even argue and even share that in the past 3.5 years, I've had 8 women, keyword 8 women, come to me and just simply ask me to get them pregnant. They didn't want to have a relationship. They didn't want to have children, anything. They just wanted me to impregnate them. Of course, I would not agree to do that. But I think this is a real issue that we're seeing in our community, and the type of dysfunctionalism that is not only being created, but oftentimes nurtured and pedestalized. I can recall, I believe, Warwick Dunn, who was the former NFL football player and, of course, Florida State University great. And I took issue with the fact that he had helped build, he had a nonprofit that built about 150 homes for single mothers. And I took issue with that. I said they're rewarding bad behavior. If anyone's struggling financially, it's the man who's paying child support and having the money deducted from his check before taxes, right? We know that oftentimes the more money you make, the more taxes that are taken out, right? And so if a man is doing average, right, just middle class in terms of the income he's earning, middle income, 20-25% of his taxes is being deducted. You add another 20%, he's getting half of a paycheck. How does he live? How does he take care of himself, right, and still be able to spend time with the children and spend money on them. So I think it's extremely disparaging, right? But once again, I think that a lot of times these initiatives are being created by particularly Black men who were raised by single mothers. Although oftentimes in today's day and age, the mothers are single mothers by choice. We've seen situations where women would have children, not even know who the father is. We've seen situations where women would have children and then move to a whole other state so that the father would not be able, once again, to be a father to the child. And the child grows up, thinking, whoa, my mom, woe was me. She's holier than thou. She's this pious individual who's doing everything she can to take care of me. When the reality is the mother put herself in that child in that situation. I can even give an example of a young lady I met. This was about 11 years ago. One moment. And I can recall a situation where the sister came to me, and this was the first date. We out at dinner, and we're having a good time. I'm being my usual gregarious self. And she told me, she says, listen, I'm gonna be real with you. One day I want to have children, and I want to be a single mother. She said, I want to raise children and prove that their children could grow up and be functional and successful without the father. She told me this first date. And you know what I said? Check, please. Got the check, paid for dinner, kept it moving. Never saw the sister again until a year ago. So 10 years went by. She's now a single mother of 2 children. This is a true story. No hyperbole. And she said, man, this is the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life. She said, I don't know what I was thinking. Now I have these 2 kids. I have to take care of them all by myself. I never get a break, And I said, well, that's what you said you wanted. And I can recall the sister saying to me, you know what, you were absolutely right to ghost me after I told you that. I said, yeah, because that's just absolutely nonsensical to plan to have children on your own and then not have the father be involved, not have the father help raise the children. In fact, I would argue it's the father's job to raise the children. It's the mother's job to nurture them, right? And so we see this type of thinking. And I would argue that much of it, I think, is manufactured due to what? Pride and vanity, rather than someone actually living through a toxic or traumatic type of experience. I would argue that much of this is just rooted through ego, pride, and narcissism, right? And so, with that being said, the link is in the chat. Like I know that this is an extremely controversial and provocative topic, but you do not have to cam up, and you can use a pseudonym to maintain anonymity. So tap in, be part of the conversation. We're talking about incentivizing dysfunctionality in the Black community. We want to take a look at Steve Harvey and Metro Boomin saying that single moms are superheroes, creating an initiative to where they're being paraded around as if they are the Justice League, that they are the Avengers, right? So tap in, be part of the conversation. Does this help or harm the Black community? How do we move forward as a community if we can't even develop, if we're actually incentivizing individuals, praising individuals who refuse to actually create the most important institution in our communities, and that is, of course, the Black family. So definitely tap in and give your perspective on this issue. Definitely tap in, give your perspective on this issue. But a design says no lies told, facts 100. Well, brother, I'm gonna need you to tap in. Let me know what it is that you agree with. You said facts regarding what, right? But once again, if you're watching, hit the like button, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, subscribe and like. I think I'm 1 subscriber away from 2,000 subscribers. So please, if you can, tap in, hit the subscribe button so that we can get to 2,000 subscribers. But here at Lumumba Speaks, we believe that we want to empower ourselves as Black people. We have to look at external as well as internal factors that contribute to the destructive and harmful harmful behavior that does our community harm, right? So once again, as I stated before, the link is in the chat. So what is the description? I want you all to tap in, be part of the conversation, and let me know what you all think regarding, does the Steve Harvey and Metro Boomin initiative program that they've created, which they're arguing that single moms are superheroes, or is that incentivizing dysfunctionality. We know oftentimes if you look at some of the trash television TV shows like the Maury Show, so on and so forth, they have, I think, I don't know if they still do this, but I do know back when I was growing up, when I was in high school, when I was coming of age on the Maury Show, they had this thing like Teen Girls Gone Wild. And the common denominator that we found on those shows was that there was no father. The father was not there, was not present, right? And so I think we have to be honest about, these issues in terms of why we see things taking place in our communities, in our schools, etc. We saw a situation in which there was an issue with the children at a local school, and they were having behavioral issues. Well, guess who solved the problem? The fathers showed up, and the fathers and the men of the community showed up and was able to get those young men and women in line, and those behavior issues, of course, went away. So when people argue against patriarchy, I don't understand where this is coming from. When people incentivize this idea of being a single mother and pedestalize it and praise it, even though individuals are doing things in a manner that is backwards, right? And this isn't something that's religious in nature, to marry before you carry, but it's about creating a sound structure for the family. And people say, well, not every child that grows up in a two-parent household does or turn out well. This is true. This is correct. But we know that statistics show that more often than not they do, right? Well balanced, right? They get the equal balance of the divine masculine and feminine energy. And so I think this is something to consider. But as I said before, the link is in the chat. Tap in, be part of the conversation. I see we have some people on the live stream. Tap in, be part of the conversation. You do not have to cam up. But I truly, truly want to get you all to perspective on this issue. So tap in, brothers and sisters, and give me your perspective on this issue. Is Steve Harvey and Metro Boomin initiative single moms are single superheroes? Does this incentivize dysfunctionality in the Black community? Are they pedestalizing and praising single motherhood as opposed to what developing strong nuclear family units? So that's the perspective. That's what I'm putting out there. I want to get you all's perspective. Please let me know what you all think. If not, we're going to call it a night rather early. I don't want to do that, but I do think that we'll be able to have a great conversation, maybe for at least half an hour to an hour. So tap in, be part of the conversation, and let me know what you all think. All right. So I don't think we're going to get anyone in this evening, so I'm going to shut it down. Until next time, you all know what to do. But if you want to tap in, the link is in the chat. The link is in the description. I want to get you all's perspective on incentivizing dysfunctionality in the Black community. Steve Harvey, Metro Boomin, putting out a platform and initiative saying that single moms are superheroes. Definitely want to get you all's perspective on what you think about that. If you're watching, make sure you hit the thumbs up button. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Hit the subscribe and like button as well. Want to get you all's perspective on what you all think about this. Does this help the Black community by incentivizing single motherhood, by pedestalizing single motherhood? What can we do about this? Just want to get you all's perspective before we call it a night. So tap in if you can. Once again, I don't want to shut things down rather early, but the link is in the chat. You don't have to cam up to tap in, and you do not, as I said before, you do not have to use your actual name. You can use a pseudonym. So tap in, be part of the conversation. If not, we're going to close it out early tonight. So we're going to shut things down. You all know who it is. It's Bakari Lumumba, the progenitor of LumumbaSpeaks.com, Black Empowerment Initiative, where we believe we can gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black. Until next time, y'all know what to do. Peace. Brother Africa, what's the word? Share with me your perspective on this situation.
Yeah, to come and support. I hopped on as you were. I think because you were still on when I hopped on, but then
Yeah.
you must have hopped right up. Yeah, to come support your channel, brother. Come holler at you. Yeah, no, it's an interesting topic, because I mean, I was listening in the background while I was handling some business, and I heard your perspective on it. It's very interesting because automatically I think of it as a good thing, maybe because essentially we got to be honest. In these households, oftentimes it's the mother that's taking care of the children, that's holding it down. You know, um, and do they not deserve to be celebrated? Of course, it's not the perfect environment for the kids to grow up in, no question about it, not by any stretch of the imagination. But shouldn't they be those mothers that hold it down when the father, and not saying all black fathers ran
Mhm.
away and they're not in their children's lives, that couldn't be further from the truth. That is actually a narrative that is pushed, that is oftentimes, it's propaganda that they push
Well,
out.
yeah, well, not I would argue not even oftentimes. It's been proven. We know that the CDC did a study showing that black men in America, black men, are more involved in the rearing and raising of their children than the men of any other racial group in this country. So this whole concept and idea of the women raising the children on their own is completely false. I would also say this. At one point, this is probably about over 10 years ago, I was a facilitator with the Montgomery County Fatherhood Initiative. And I can speak from my time working with the Fatherhood Initiative that many of these women are single mothers by choice. They don't want the fathers in the picture. They want to raise these kids on their own and receive all the credit when the children turn out well. If the children turn out bad, then they want to complain and say, "Oh, it's because," and then say that, "Okay, well, it's because I didn't. The father wasn't around." So, Brother Seeley is saying that just came in. What exactly the topic question again before I request to join? So I'm arguing the question, brother, is Steve Harvey and Metro Boomin. They created an initiative entitled Single Moms are Superheroes. I'm asking the question, and you can tap in. Does this incentivize dysfunctionality in the black community? I hope you could tap in, brother, and be part of the conversation. So we know that that isn't true because the studies show that black men are more involved in the rearing and caring of their children than the any men of any other race in the country. Right.
Mhm.
So the second issue is we never should reward bad behavior. And I may have stated this before you tapped in, but at the beginning of the broadcast, I mentioned I was part of the programming committee for a citywide Kwanzaa celebration. And there was a sister I went to high school with who was a single mother, and she was asking if we could do a salute to single mothers on doing the program, the citywide Kwanzaa program. And the elders was like, absolutely not. We're not going to support or pedestalize or trumpet uh, doing things the wrong way,
Mhm.
right? You're supposed to marry before you carry. That's
Mhm.
simple, right? And so if you didn't marry before you carried, then you were planning to be a single mom. This is typically what happens. If you actually have conversations with a lot of women, what you will find is they will tell you that, hey, the guy said he didn't want to have kids. I had the baby anyway. And then we know the litany of issues that come, not only from an emotional standpoint, from a uh, disciplinary standpoint, from a behavioral standpoint. Children who grow up in single parent households, female headed households, are more likely to abuse drugs, be involved in the criminal justice system, drop out of school, become sexually lascivious. So why would we support something like that when statistics show that children are more often than not going to turn out bad, right? And turn out dysfunctional. So, what do you say to that?
You make a lot of very valid points, brother.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree, it's not monolithic. All single mothers aren't great, right? Um, they're not. That is very true. But what do we do in those case scenarios where we do have those single mothers who are holding it down, who are raising to the best of their abilities
Mm-hmm.
strong African children? What do we say
Well,
about that? I think they should be held up in
so
regard.
I'm going to say this in 2 points. One, as I said before, you should never reward bad behavior. The second issue is I'm pushed. I'm in my upper 30s. I have never seen a single a female-led household that was not dysfunctional, ever, ever. So irrespective of what's taking place, unless you are a widow, i.e. Coretta Scott King, i.e. Betty Shabazz, i.e. what, Medgar Evers' wife, right? I would never, under any circumstances, support someone who is knowingly and willingly choosing to bring children into this world and raise them without the father in the home.
But what do you do about those case scenarios? And I understand that, what is it, 70 or 80% of divorces are actually made or filed
Initiated
by
by
the
a lot of
woman?
them.
Yeah, and I do understand that, but what about those case scenarios where it's the father that walked out on the family? What do you do
Well,
about those
and here's the
situations?
thing with that. The reason why I'm going to dismiss that is because we know that that is few and far between. So we're going to deal with the majority of what takes place.
And if that's what you want to focus on, then I understand if that's
Yeah,
what
but
you want
I'm just saying,
to.
like, I'm going to
If you
focus
don't
on
want
what
to focus
happens
on the
80.
exceptions,
I'm gonna focus on what happens the majority of the time, not what happens
okay,
the minority of the time. This happens 80% of the time, 20% of the
gotcha.
time. The father is the one who's saying, "I've had enough." But as I said before, what we do know is that even when the father is the one who initiates the ending or the dissolution of the relationship or the marriage, Black fathers are still more involved with their children than any other racial ethnic group of men in the country.
Yeah,
Brother,
you're giving me
Big
an
Us.
interesting perspective to
Yeah,
think
I
on,
mean,
brother.
but the thing is, this is based on the fact that this was a study done by the CDC. So this isn't in a perspective. This is rooted in the data. It's just like when we would get on social media and we would see a litany of women saying, "Well, Black men are marrying out, Black men are marrying white women." But then when you go to look at the statistics of all the Black men that are married, only 8% of Black men who are married to white women. So the reality is this isn't
You
true.
said only 8%,
Only
8%?
8%, according to blackdemographics.com. Black demographics for people, Black people by Black people, Black
Oh,
demographics.
we got 8% coons.
Yeah. Well,
Sucker.
we don't use racial epithets in
Oh
my
yeah, I forget. Hey, that's one of my favorite words, so I'm getting used to that. Traders, we have more than 8% traders, but at least
Yes. But
8%.
and
Yeah.
we know Black demographics has been cited by the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, right? So this is this is a record, right? So this is scholarship that has been vetted, right? Only 8%. So once again, these are narratives that are being promoted. And the other issue is we know that, whenever you have a situation where they're speaking of single mothers in such glowing terms, you know what they're also doing. They're also stating by default that the man ain't shit, the father ain't shit. I give an example, and I'm gonna open up the butter Gus. My son is 15. There was a situation where his mom was at some university speaking, and she was just in there talking about how she was such a single mom. And I was there to pick up my son. My son was with me 6 days a week, but she was on the platform telling the people how she was raising her son by herself.
She was doing this where?
And she was speaking at a university.
Okay. Damn.
So once again, by default, if the woman is saying I'm raising this child by myself, you know what that says about the father. Brother Negus, what's the word?
Hey, can y'all hear me well?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I had to step outside. I'm on the clock right now, but
Yes,
I
sir.
definitely was interested in this conversation. And I wanted to say, in my opinion on the situation, I think my opinion be much more of a perspective, like you said, versus like fact. I would never say that,
Yes, sir.
but me, from I've grown up, I'm a young male, about 20, 24,
Okay.
and coming from a single parent household, and I know like my mom did the best for me, yada yada yada. But I can say I agree in some parts of like most single parents households, you know, are designed to fail, especially at our state.
Okay. You could continue, brother. You could continue.
Hold on, I'm sorry, give you a second, job.
Okay, no problem, no problem. So I think this is a major issue. And like I stated, I believe that we have to tackle some of the really hard and pressing issues in our community. We know that unfortunately, oftentimes, and particularly in Black activist circles with so-called pro-Blacks, that it's easy to point out the external enemies of the Black community, right? Anti-Black racism, white supremacy, etc. But it's very difficult to point out the internal enemies in the Black community. And we're talking about the manner in which we live, racially disempowering, self-destructive behaviors, right? That we live on a daily basis, and so oftentimes we don't want to point out those issues, and it leads to these type of problems, right? So I believe that the best maintenance is preventive maintenance. If you want to solve a problem, the best way to solve a problem is by preventing it from taking place. So hopefully, Brother Nagus will be able to tap back in. But Brother Jabril, what are your thoughts on what Brother Nagus had to say?
This whole topic is really, it really has me thinking. Like a lot of things that I didn't believe as partly as I did before when I was younger, but I still held on to some beliefs that you are dispelling. So this is a very intriguing conversation for sure. Yeah, and I do agree. I don't think we should, hold up dysfunctional, values or dysfunctional, things within our community. I do agree with that. But then automatically in my mind, I'm like, because I know I've known many, single moms who were good. I don't know how that situation came about, right? That they got into that situation. But I'm just thinking about those, mothers, right? So
Right, and here's the other issue. Most if you've ever dated a woman who was a single mother, what you would tend to find is the children run the household. Literally. Brother Nagus, I think you were trying to tap back in.
Oh, yes. I would say I'm kind of a little bit struggling with it because like as he said, I kind of see both sides, and like I said, from my perspective, growing up within a single parent household, and also, having family members, and not even just family, of course we see it's very predominant, unfortunately, in our times. And I struggle with it because I've seen both sides of it, not even just with myself, but I've seen like the single parents that, their children run the household, like you said. But I've also seen the single parent that was able to raise this child up in a successful manner. And many times in those cases, the father, if he would have came around, it just would have been negative.
Okay, so we're gonna open this up. When you say the father, if he would have came around, it would have been negative. Can you give me an example of that? Because
example. I could give myself as a perfect example of that, right?
Mhm.
I've always grown up in a single parent household from time for like predominant of my life, and my father, he wasn't in my life as well as he should have been. And
so okay,
let me
so
hold on, let me wait for these sirens to go by.
okay, so let me ask you this question. When you say he wasn't in your life as much as he should have been, so two questions. One, was he paying child support? And two, did he have any type of court ordered custody or visitation of you?
Uh, he was on court to pay child support, but for the most time he usually didn't. But technically, to answer,
Hold on, real quick. How do you know he wasn't paying child support?
I know because it was basically what I was being told.
Right. So you don't know.
And
Hold on.
I would say I've been told, that, and as well the court visits as well. We had quite a few of them.
Okay. So if he was going to court, then it sounds like he was trying to see you.
No, the most of the times when he was going to court, it was because of not paying. And for the most part, too, in my situation, my mom, whenever he did go to court, my mom would actually like try to make sure he didn't land in prison or in jail, not prison, but jail for the lack of that. She always went to bat for him within the court system.
Okay.
But at times.
So let me ask you this: it sounds like your mother was your mother a professional woman?
Professional in what manner?
Like, did she have a profession? Was she a career? Did she have a career?
No.
Okay, but she worked.
Yes.
Was your father, was he a professional man, a career man, or
No.
was
No.
he,
And that's
was he a
no.
miscreant? Was he a miscreant?
Oh, you say that again?
Was he a miscreant? Was your father a miscreant, a criminal, a street guy?
Yes.
Okay, so then that means that the question needs to be, why would your mother choose to have a child with someone who's a criminal?
That is true. That is true.
Seriously. So once again, it goes back to
Mhm.
accountability on the woman.
Yeah. And now I can say, however, they developed their relationship when they was younger. They were both in school.
Doesn't matter.
And
Doesn't
okay.
matter. I got an older sister. Okay, she
Mhm.
got 6 years on me. She would tell me, I knew the dude wasn't shit when I was in 7th grade. What tends to happen in the black community, and I'm gonna let you finish, but what tends to happen in the black community is that when young women are young, the guy being a criminal, the guy being in the streets is exciting to them. They have babies with those guys, and then when they turn 30 and grow up and mature, they realize, oh, I don't need to be with this type of man. I need to be with the guy who they say is the L7 square. Too late. But what I will say is, because I work in higher ed and I work with different racial ethnic groups, I've had women from different other racial ethnic groups tell me that their fathers would tell them emphatically, stay the hell away from these dudes who are criminals. You get with a criminal, we're going to excommunicate you from the family.
Right.
You see what I'm saying here?
And I think, like, even in my situation, it's still a problematic thing, as you said, because like we stated, even though they were young when they was in it, they both of my parents at times, and especially during the time of when they was together, dipped into that street life, that criminal activity. So
Right.
that's a huge issue in itself. And then
Yes,
if we go even further back, let's look at my mom's parents. Her father wasn't in her life, so it's just even more of a trickle down effect.
right.
But from my understanding and from me talking, unfortunately, getting my father's side has been hard in regards to like how things went, because he just kind of refuses to talk about it. But for the most part, I can say when I have talked to my mom about it and stuff like that, she's one of the rare that I say who doesn't talk about it in malice. Like how a lot of people have a lot of hatred and
Yes.
all that for the baby daddy and stuff. My mom did. I could definitely say my mom did a very good job, and not like her relationship with him, not allowing that to affect me.
Yes, sir. So let me ask you this. Because I always argue that even when the mother just trying to do her best job, there are certain things that particularly young men and young women miss out on. So for the young man, a normal form of father-son bonding is that the father and son would horseplay. They would wrestle, things of that nature. And this is a form of physical bonding and emotional bonding, social emotional bonding, but also helps a young man gain a sense of physicality, become comfortable with his body, and learn how to defend himself. So I'm gonna ask you, Brother Negas, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to. Did you experience this growing up?
Oh no, this I'm perfectly fine with answering it. From my father, no. I
Okay.
got a lot. I got a lot of that. Honestly, I did get it from my mom, but as well, I also got it from my family members, like my cousins, a
Okay.
few uncles, but
Got
not from the father, which that's very important.
Yes, sir. And so the other issue is I can recall sometime I moonlight part-time to work in security, and I was working at a store, and the young lady was telling me how she doesn't have a father. Her mom is the mother and the father. And I said, well, first off, you stop that bull crap right there, right? I said, because that's disrespectful to fathers everywhere in the institution of fatherhood, because there are certain things that a father can do for you that your mom will never be able to do. Now I'm going to give you all an example. And shout out to Sister Mary Shy. I appreciate what you had to say. Sister Mary Shy says, that's exactly why I don't want to be a single mother. I feel sorry for single mothers. That's why I waited until my late 20s to become intimate. I would like for you to tap in, sister, be part of the conversation, give a divine, African, feminine perspective on this issue. As you know, the link is in the chat as well as the description. And Sister Love Ash states, I see you, Mary Shy. I hope you could tap in as well, sister. And so one of the things that a father, and I even shared this with my daughter, because she'll be 13 next month, so she's feeling herself a little bit. So I'll be happy to let her know what's really good, right? But I told her, I said, one thing that a father would give their daughter is the father's the only man that will ever love, nurture, and physically hug, touch, in any manner in which she's not looking for anything in return. The father is the only man that will ever hug his daughter and not want anything in return. So imagine, once again, being a young lady who has never experienced that, never experienced a father's love. He's hugging me. He tells me he loves me. He tells me he's beautiful, and he doesn't want anything out of me, right? And so missing out on these things oftentimes can leave people in situations where they're then searching for these things in the wrong places.
And I can say on the flip side of that, right? Like missing out on, like as you said, the father-son bond. For an example, in a lot of Black communities, the father-son bond derives around sports. Since my father was never in my life, a lot of the times I can honestly say I struggled with me in sports. Like it was one of those things where I subconsciously, and I realized it until later in my life when I sat down and analyzed the situation for myself, but I subconsciously shied away from many sports and stuff like that, even the ones I was interested in, besides a few like karate and stuff like that. But the sports, like the big sport, the football, basketball, and stuff like that. And a lot of that was because I knew my father was, a big sports man.
Mm-hmm.
And he was actually like a really good football star when he was in high school. So I subconsciously, a lot of those things, I basically said that the things that my father did, I'm not doing that.
Got you.
And in hindsight, some of that was, it limited me. And it was kind of unfair of myself, to put them limitations on myself, because that could have been something I could have enjoyed.
Right. And I would say this much, because I can recall when my son was 10, his mom moved to another state. And my son had sent me some videos of him playing football on Instagram. And he was horrible, right? So I got him for the summer. And he was like, man, I'm just not a good football player. I said, that's not true. You just haven't had any coaching. So I was like, I played semi-pro. So I said, listen, I'm going to coach you up. After that summer, everywhere he went, he was killing cats, straight beast mode. You know what I mean? So a lot of times when individuals are choosing to be single parents, and we're talking about single mothers in this particular situation, they don't consider these type of issues. They don't consider the social emotional issues, the psychological issues. We know that oftentimes, unfortunately, single mothers treat fathers as fungible, and fatherhood as something that is fluid. What do I mean by that? Meaning whoever they're in a relationship with, that's who the child's father is. So it's almost like non-custodial parent musical chairs, right? And so these are issues, that we find in our community, and it teaches the child growing up, well, hey, if I have a baby, I don't have to stay and be committed to raise my child. I can leave and someone else would do the job, right? Because we know children are actors. Children act out what they see in the home. Even when they are adults, who you are as a child and your experiences shape who you become in your worldview as an adult. So these are real issues that many people aren't looking at, aren't truly considering, when I would argue that they're incentivizing dysfunctional behavior and, of course, pedestalizing single motherhood. And I would dare say, and I've said this to women in person, listen, if you chose to carry before you married, I don't want to hear about any struggle at all. I don't want to hear about you had to do it on your own because you chose to be a single mother when you decided to lay down and have a child without being married.
See, I think the issue I struggle like in regards to this conversation is like with tradition in a sense, or like the sense of tradition. Like, we look at marriage a lot of times, it's like the traditional way, this and that, this and that. And that may be more so a personal thing for me, because me, since I didn't grow up, within this traditional framework, my initial brain is to, deny, that traditional. And then I also think too, one of my issues kind of like, well, I ain't gonna say issues per se, but the thing that I think I would like to hear more about in regards to this type of conversation is like, I'm trying to see how exactly I'm going to put it. Not preventive care, but like, how do we deal with the reality of the situations for many people now? Because it's easier, to say, don't do this, don't do that. But how do we deal with the single moms, the single fathers, now, or those kids that don't get this love?
I'm so glad that you asked that question, brother, because I can see that you're someone who was thinking forward, right? And so I'm glad you asked it. So two things. One, in the Black community, particularly if we go back 60, 70, 80 years ago, if a woman had a child, was a teenage mother, she was ostracized. She became a social leper. No one associated with her, right? She was bad company. The second issue, and this is something I was taught growing up by my father, right, was that he told us, if you have a child and you're not a father to your child, you are no longer a member of this family. So you see what I'm saying here? So there were consequences for deviant behavior. The issue now in our community is that there are no consequences for the deviant behavior, and the behavior is oftentimes what? Not only is pedestalized and put on a pedestal for what people to actually praise and admire. To me, I think that is, of course, problematic. Sister Love, Ash, hope you can tap in and be part of the conversation. E-Shore, ENT, Black African Power, you better believe it. Hope you can tap in, be part of the conversation as well. The link is in the chat. I'm gonna put the link in the chat.
See, I think
in the description.
I think kind of like as I'm thinking through this, when it comes to like the idea of like what is the line between consequence and punishment?
Well, so I must say this much, because I think that's a conversation for another day. But when you are the head of your family, you are the patriarch or matriarch, you set the rules, right? You make the precedents, right? And whatever you say is acceptable behavior in the family, that's acceptable behavior. And whatever the person says is not acceptable behavior, that's unacceptable behavior. For example, growing up, my parents said we had to be home before the street lights came on. Everybody else got to stay out after the street lights came on, but we had to be home, right? Irrespective if I thought it was right, wrong, or indifferent, that's what the rules are, right? My dad told us growing up, if you end up in jail, don't call here because I'm not posting your bail. Right, wrong, indifferent, those were the rules of the household. And so when you are in that position, when you are the leader of a family, you're going to make certain precedents and they have to follow those or keep it moving. That's just what it is.
And I agree with that, but I think, and it's funny because me and one of my close friends, we have this discussion a lot. Like we constantly have this discussion, and often I think he falls a lot towards your side. Like I'm definitely gonna try to send him this video sometime soon because he gonna love this conversation. But I think one of the things when it comes to this that I question a lot of times, not saying I disagree with it, but in terms of like, how do we evolve, what are these answers from just simply, we just like, how do we evolve this from simply just, I make the rules here? Like, how do we push for our community to analyze, not just make the rules, but analyze the situation and, and make sound judgment? Because it's easier to just be like, okay, this is what I was taught, this is what I know, and disregard anything else that's not necessarily, what you was taught or goes against what you were taught. And it's like, how do...
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and like, how do we like push for people to think a little bit more critically with it? Not saying you're not, because obviously you are. We having this discussion, but how do we get people to think? How do we get people to evolve our thinking in this matter, and not just simple like follow this line or follow this line? Do exactly this good or exactly this bad?
So here's the thing. Most people, everyone knows how to make a baby. You have unprotected sex. No one's out here making babies and they don't know that this is the concept. This is how you make a baby. The second issue is we know that nowadays we have the proliferation of various forms of media that typically promotes these type of ideas. If we're talking about ratchet street culture, we're talking about stripper culture, etc., being sexually promiscuous, so on and so forth. So we're almost at a point to where we can't control how people think. We can't influence people's behavior, but what we can say as a community is there are certain behaviors that we will not accept. So for example, you can't convince every person who's a miscreant to not engage in criminal activity. But what you can say is you can't be criminals on our block. right? And so it just comes down to what are you willing to accept and what you are not willing to accept in terms of in your personal life.
Right. And but I think like a lot of times with just when people try to address these things, because I'm thinking about, I guess I'm thinking more so how, I guess, how to save, you know, the people, because I'm thinking of like in our current reality, this is unfortunately a current reality for many people. So it's like, how do we curtail it to where it's like, okay, we want to get here, but we're obviously not at a point to where we can get there. And if we just like just completely alienate them, that doesn't necessarily change conditions over time.
This is true, but I would argue that it's not our responsibility to change the conditions that someone put themselves in due to their personal behavior.
Yeah, I don't agree with that either. Just throwing them away because they made that mistake. I think, first of all, I think we need to organize our people. And when we have these organizations and we build these institutions, we can, you know, in a sense, help raise those kids because those kids are a part of us. They're not any less a part of us because their father their father and their mother aren't together anymore and they're living in a split household, you know? So I think back in the days, right? Back in the days, 60s onwards in America, it's still the
Mhm.
same way in Africa because we're in, you know, Africans in America practice an African culture for the most part. But
Right.
essentially, the community raised the kids. So essentially, how do I put this? The community, the child belonged to, and this is the way it is in Africa. The child belongs to the community. It came through the parent. You understand?
I'm gonna disagree with you, brother Jabril.
All right.
And I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna give an anecdotal story and then I'm gonna tap in. When I was in first grade, I was walking home from school and I cut through somebody's yard. And when I got home, my parents knew about it and I had to go back to that person, apologize about cutting through their yard, and then walk back home, right? And so when we talk about it takes a community. The community didn't raise those children. They were not responsible for the food, clothing, and shelter of that child, right? But what the community did was that they saw this child engaging in behavior that they believed was unbecoming in the eyes of the parents. They would say something to the child about it, but they did not raise that child. The second issue is when you say, oh, this child is a single mom, is a product of a single parent household, and they don't have the father around, then what does that do? Or the father isn't in the home, that undermines the father by someone else trying to come in and play the role of dad. Because I've had it happen
I
to
think
me.
that's the ego.
It happens. I've had it happen to me, and the guy almost lost his head. You see what I'm saying here? It's disrespectful. Because this is what most, and I'm going to put this out here, single mothers do. Okay, we're not together, so I'm going to find someone else to be the daddy. This is what most single mothers do. Whoever the daddy is, whoever they're in a relationship with. So it creates dysfunction on top of dysfunction on top of dysfunction. I remember I was having a conversation at the gym with a young man about this. OG came up. He was 48 years old. He said, man, you know, Brother Bakari, I got to agree with him. I had a situation when I was in my 20s. I was dating a sister who had 2 sons, and she said they needed a father. So I came in the picture trying to help them out. He said, it turned out the mom was keeping the kids away from the father. The dad found out I was trying to be the daddy. And then he said the guy ran up on him and pulled a gun on his ass.
Yeah, that's crazy, but that's
Here's the
within the
thing.
European.
You're coming into a situation in which you don't actually know what's going on. The only thing you know is what this woman is telling you, and you don't know what she's telling you is the truth, and you're putting yourself in harm's way.
Yeah, I hear that, but going back to how it is in Africa, the community does raise the children, and the question is, what do you consider raised? Do you consider sleep in the house? I feed you 3 times a day. I think that's a very narrow way of thinking about raising a child.
It's also what? Who is inculcating particular values in the child. So, for example,
That's the community in African society.
I understand, but for me, and this is just me personally, right? And this may be incongruent, right, with traditional cultural perspectives. And some of my views are incongruent because, one, I'm an atheist. That's my responsibility. I don't leave that to anyone else. I don't leave to anyone the responsibility of influencing my child's thinking and worldview. I don't put that on the community. I put that on me because I don't trust anyone's leadership or perspective except for my own. And what I can say to that is oftentimes because of that, this is why you have people saying, well, I don't have to be the dad. The community would do it. I don't have to teach my son X, Y, Z. The community would do it. I don't have to do X with my child. The community would do it. So it also can cultivate irresponsibility because it creates a situation in which fatherhood becomes what? Fluid. And I guarantee that child wants daddy. They don't want the community. They want daddy. They don't want the community. They want to roll it. They sit on daddy's lap and fall asleep. Not the community. They want daddy to tuck them in, not the community. They want daddy to teach them how to fight, not the community. That young lady wants daddy to tell her she's beautiful, not the community. There's a difference.
I agree to a certain extent, Brother Lumumba. I do think that is very important to have the father in the household, to have a two-parent household. No question about it. That's super clear. But I think we need that, and we need the community as well. We need both. I don't think you just have one and not the other, because let's say you have this household and you're raising, you got two parents who are like conscious Pan-Africanist revolutionaries raising two children, and their kids go out into the street and they live in Compton. That environment is also going to raise your child. There's no question about that. So we do need both. I do. Yes, that's what I believe.
Well, and so I would agree with you there, right? The African proverb states what? The ruin of a nation begins in the homes of its people. So I'm just making the argument because I'm a parent, it begins in the home first. Yes, society, Brother B. Quillan, hope you can tap in, brother. Don't underestimate society's influence. I would agree, right? But it begins in the home because the home is the first socializer of the child. And whatever the child learns in the home first, guess what happens? They will believe it's the norm. And I can say this because I've been the president of the Parent Teacher Association at my children's school. There are many parents who they don't teach their children anything. They put everything on the school, everything on the community to educate, to socialize, to discipline, right? So once again, as I said before, it can breed irresponsibility.
I agree with that last part, especially for sure.
And this is something
those parents that's crazy.
I've had
relying,
I've had parents, single mothers, once again, who children were in first and second grade, asking me if I could tutor their kids. First off, you could tutor your child in first and second grade. There ain't nothing difficult about it.
I remember you told me that.
You see what I'm saying? But the issue is what? They got something more important to do. Because when you're teaching your children how to read and write, guess what? It's time intensive. It's not labor intensive. It's time intensive. I know because I've done it before. I'm sitting there with my 4-year-old and it's taking him 30 minutes to read 2 pages. But the game is on. The game is on. The blind going for another title. What's more important? That's what it comes down to. And so what I'm arguing is that, this is my personal experience, it's anecdotal. And like I said, brothers and sisters in the chat, hit the like and subscribe button, tap in, be part of the conversation. But in my anecdotal experience, most of the individuals, and not you, but most people who are single parents who do a piss poor job raising their kids will always follow in the community, but they don't even believe in those type of African-centered perspectives until it's convenient for them because they're not doing their job.
Yeah, those people shouldn't have kids.
Raise I'm telling you, this has been my experience. Yeah. And I told you before we had a conversation offline, I'm a Pan-Africanist. There was a time that I was a Negro. There was a time that I was a criminal. So I've seen it all. Seen it all. I mean, you have individuals who are parents, are in the home, but lazy as hell. Lazy. The kids got Jordans on their feet, but got to eat top ramen for a week. This is real. So we're talking about
menticide. That's menticide through and through.
We're talking about internal issues in our community. And we will never solve these problems by continuing to help people who are making bad decisions. I come a call all the time. This is a true story. I had got into a fight. This was 12 years ago, and I beat the brakes off of this dude. He had to actually go to the hospital. He had to actually have plastic surgery done. That's how bad I beat dude up. And there was a brother. The U.S. Marshal showed up at my door. They had the whole block blocked off, the alley, everything. And so I called the brother like, yo, man, I need you to da-da-da-da-da-da. And the brother said, listen, I understand the third principle of Kwanzaa is collective work and responsibility. And we got to make our brothers and sisters problems, our problems, and solve them together. But you keep fucking up, you're going to be on your own. That's what he told me. So at some point, you got to say, you know what? Hey, I'm going to have to wash my hands with this because you keep doing the same shit over and over again. I don't have time for this. You know that if you are going out here, having children, unable to financially support them, but we're supposed to come to your aid, absolutely not.
Gosh, okay, yeah, you see, this is something this is something you spent.
Go ahead,
go ahead, brother.
Go ahead.
No, this is something you've clearly spent a lot of time thinking about.
Oh yeah.
You know, because I know you have like personal experience with this type of shit, but yeah, no, I haven't given it too much thought, and a lot of the things that I believe in is indoctrination for the most part about this specific topic, which is becoming more clear for me to see. But you're kind of cold-blooded with it. Like,
I know. And I can admit that, and I appreciate you saying that. But part of it is because, and some of this is the vitriolic, right? I'm disgusted by it because I've grown up seeing this type of crap, right? I've grown up seeing situations where women were married, had good fathers, had good husbands, and just left the guy because they want to go party in the streets. And then to see this man who was a good father and a good husband having to pay child support for 3 kids, and he's living in a studio apartment. But she's the one who's praised. You see what I'm saying here? So like I always tell people, the devil is in the details. I remember I was in my doctoral program, something happened, and the young lady said, you should just believe me. I said, shit, I don't even believe my own children. What the fuck is wrong with you?
What the fuck is wrong with you?
Seriously though, I remember my son came and told me something. As a matter of fact, it was my son and my daughter. And I tell you all what happened. They were like, my son was 8, I think my daughter was 5. And they came in the house from playing, and my daughter was bleeding on her forehead. And he said something like, oh, she fell walking up the steps. And I was like, I don't believe you. What actually happened? Right? And they admitted, like, oh, well, we were playing around throwing rocks at each other, and I got hit in the head. Right? I said, I'm not stupid. I ain't no freaking way. You know what I'm saying? It's just, at some point, you've been around enough to know that don't sound right. You see what I'm saying? So this is why I take such a hard stance on it, because in my opinion, one of the reasons why we see women are willing to have children out of wedlock at such a prolific rate now is because of the social shaming has been removed. It's now praised. Yeah, think about it. In the Black community, particularly in America, if you are a Black woman who are married, you are a wife and a mother, people will not even mention you. But if you are a single mother, you will be put on TV and given all these awards, pedestalized, praised. But if you do things the right way, no one talks about you.
Yeah, that is praising dysfunction.
You see what I'm saying? That's dysfunctional. Yeah. It's dysfunctional that when our children go to school, if you make straight A's, you make the president's list, you make the dean's list, you get a tiny little certificate, right? But if you win a football game, you get the Hughes Trophy. But it's incentivizing and promoting dysfunctional activity. Even our schools promote athletics over academics. But we don't question these things because of menticide. We know statistically that children do worse, categorically worse, exponentially worse if they grow up in a female-headed household. So why would we then be praising and promoting something like this? Children are 80% more likely to be physically or sexually abused. And the number one cause of children being physically and sexually abused is that the mother has moved some guy into the home.
Yeah, just a sidebar. People who do that to children, I believe they shouldn't walk the face of the earth anymore.
I would
I
agree
think
100%.
their head should be,
Absolutely.
yeah, their head should be taken, no
Absolutely.
question about that. Fuck all that
Absolutely.
shit. Devils.
Absolutely.
That's your, especially an African that does some shit like that. That's not African culture. Europeans have been doing that for fucking
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
millennia.
Yeah,
They've
I
been
would
doing
agree.
that for a very long time.
Yeah,
That's
so
not a part of our
there's no
culture.
place in our
Yeah,
community
no,
where
no place for
pedophilia
that. And
is
they're actually trying to make that, the Europeans are trying to normalize that as well. I don't
yeah,
know if I even heard you maybe speak. We maybe have tapped in about or
yeah,
spoken about this
yeah.
as well. They're trying
That's
to
it, and that's
normalize
why I tell
that.
people I'm an advocate of the death penalty.
Devils.
There are certain things where I think they need to just get
Oh,
you
I
up.
agree with that.
And certain
I
things I
agree
believe you
wholeheartedly.
do, you should just. So sister love as says praise and support. Sister love as I hope you could tap in, be part of the conversation. I'm gonna put the link in the chat right below your comment. Praise and support. Either way, I don't believe that you should ever reward bad behavior. If I go out and make some bad decisions, matter of fact, I can recall there was a situation where I was arrested, and my dad had came down to the jail to see me. It was like, listen, if you're innocent, we will support you and help you with the lawyer, post your bond, get you out of here. But if you did this shit, you on your own. So once again, if someone is knowingly and willingly choosing to have children out of wedlock and be a single parent, I don't think they deserve our support at all. Because like I said, we live in a society, particularly American society, that allows women to be irresponsible. I'll give you an example. There was I believe, a safe haven law that was created in which mothers can take their children within a month of giving birth to them, drop them off at any hospital, fire station, or police station. And why was this law created? Because mothers were killing their children, not fathers. The mothers were killing their kids. Right? The second issue is, but a father can't do that. He can't say, you know what, I don't want to be a dad. Let me drop this child off at a hospital, fire station, or police station. He's on the hook financially for 18 years, no matter what. So we live in a society in which mothers are giving space to be irresponsible. For example, mothers could give their children up for adoption. Fathers can't.
No way. Is that real? For real?
Yes.
I've never heard that before. That's wild. That's wild.
Absolutely. But the design says, I think some people are trying to protect their mother's feelings so they don't call it out. Absolutely. Kevin Samuels talked about this. This creates a culture in which, of course, women are held accountable because we know when you are in the home, a child never is going to tell their parent what they're doing wrong. Because if you do, you're going to get smacked across your face. So it creates a culture in which what? The women aren't being held accountable for their actions or the behavior. Sister Mary Shai says, design that is true. I definitely don't want to hurt my mom's feelings, but my mom grew up in a two-parent household in a military family, so I don't understand why she did what she did. Ooh, Sister Shy, you cook. Ooh, that's tough right there. But that tends to be what happens. And so this creates a culture in which, when I grew up in a situation to where my mom wasn't held accountable by anyone and was able to do whatever she wanted, it becomes normalized, and then that young man or young woman, they go out and follow that behavior as well. I luckily grew up in a two-parent household. My parents have been married for 45 years. And so I didn't grow up in a situation where there was no accountability. In fact, I grew up in a household in which everyone in the home was held accountable for their behavior. So these are some of the things that come with single-parent households, particularly female-headed single-parent households. I know personally of situations in which there were children living with a mother, going to school, failing every subject in school, math, English, science, gym, every subject. The children go live with the dad, they're A and B students. The only difference was the home that they were living in. Same school, same teacher. So as I stated before, we shouldn't be supporting something that we know, and the majority of the overwhelming majority of the time, what it turns out creates dysfunctional children.
Yeah, you're giving me a lot to think about for sure.
Ever.
I'm gonna be taking this over for some time. What I will say though is one thing I will push back on, and this is something that organizing the masses of our people. This is something I dedicated the rest of my life to. And one thing that I know for certain, we're not gonna we're not gonna leave out those kids that are in, that are from a single parent household. I think and this is where I would disagree with you on, and I think you made this clear, is they're on their own on raising them kids, and I don't agree with that because those
And
kids are a
I would
part of
argue
us.
that
They're a
I
part of our
misspoke.
race.
I think I misspoke.
Okay.
That's why we
Yeah.
should have mentoring programs. This is why we should have
Yep, I agree
Juma
with that.
Mosi Shule, Saturday, African Center Saturday schools. Right?
And I completely agree with that.
Yeah, but am I going to raise someone else's children? No.
Oh, and
My,
that's a different conversation.
yeah, because my kids will be looking at me like, "What's wrong with you, Pop?" Like that mofo was not my brother. Right? They ain't coming to my bedroom. They ain't coming to my bedroom. You know what I'm saying? For real. The one thing I do know about my children is, and I can call this my son, even when he was way back when he was 2 years old. I used to go pick him up from daycare. And if I even interacted with any other child, he would go in the corner and fold cross his arms and stick his lip out. He used to do that when he was 2 years old. Crazy. But he was always possessive of me. I can really, my daughter as well. So, brother, be cool. I'm saying, but we are focusing on the systems of the problem, not the actual problem, the system. So, brother, be cool. If you can't tap in, I hope you can. I really want you to be able to unpack what you mean by that. What do you think is the actual problem? And then number two, if you can't tap in and share what the actual problem is, if you could put that in the chat, that'd be greatly appreciated. But Sister Shai
one thing I will say about real quick about what brother JR said, we need to be very clear. We and Dr. Emma speaks about this often. We talk in abstractions. We'll say
yes,
white
sir.
supremacy. We'll say the system. We never ever point out who the system is or who white supremacy is. Let's be clear. It's the white devil. It's our enemies, the people that we have been at war with for thousands of years now, right? So we need to be very clear about that. It's an enemy. It's not just the system. When we focus on abstractions, we'll never fix this problem. We need to be very specific, brother. And I know brother JR agrees with me on that for sure.
Right, but I really want to hear what I wish I could. My Wi-Fi. So he's saying his Wi-Fi is down. But what do you mean by what is the actual problem? Because I would argue that the actual problem is Black people choosing to engage in racially disempowering, self-destructive, self-defeating behavior. Because there's no white person around when we're in between those sheets. Right? There's only two Black institutions that white people do not have control of. The first is the church, and we can have an argument about the church and if it's actually helping or harming the Black community. But the second, of course, is the household. So if you could, Brother Bikalan, tap in and share in the chat what you mean by that. And Sister Shai says, at Brother Design, I know how you feel. It makes me sad when I tell people I grew up in a single mother household. It is embarrassing. That's why I'm trying my hardest to get married before having children. I would agree. It is embarrassing. And I'm a divorcee, and it's embarrassing for me. Embarrassing. Unbecoming. Right? Especially when I grew up in a household in which my parents are still married to this day. So, Brother Bikalan is saying the problem is the white supremacy system. So how is white supremacy responsible for Black people going out and choosing to have children out of wedlock? You have to explain this one to me, brother. You're going to have to explain, you have to break this one down. How is white supremacy responsible for Black people choosing to have children and not have a family? All right. Brother Jabril, go right ahead.
Yeah, so would you not, let me ask you this, would you not say every ill we have, even the ones that weren't directly caused by our enemies, were caused by enemies down the line? You don't think incentivizing the Black man to or the Black woman to not have the Black man at home, right? When we talk about this was, I believe in the 70s or 80s. The
That was in the
exact date
60s.
is it was in the 60s. Okay,
Yes, sir.
to incentivize the mothers to not have the fathers in the home. Obviously, it's the mother. It's the mother who's making this decision. But you don't think the enemy is also responsible as well
So
for knowing? Because we got to understand this is a plan they had in place.
yes, sir.
What we're
Yes, sir.
seeing, what you and I are speaking about today, this is the fruition or the cake that's been baking for many decades, right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
So we need
sir.
to be clear about that as well.
Yes, sir. So this is what I'm going to say. I understand that white supremacy is a real issue, but I don't believe in giving white people too much power. Right? we are still responsible for our own actions. Point blank, period. Irrespective of what's being promoted in the media, irrespective of the fact that the majority of rap music promotes criminality, violence, and black on black killings, fratricide. If I decide to go out here and kill somebody based on me believing the bullshit I watch on TV, that's not a reputable defense when I go to court. So, and because I'm saying this because the only way that we can actually address this issue is not putting it off on white folk, by taking accountability for what we have said and done. And it's almost like when you deal with Christians, where the devil made me do it. It wasn't me. I'm not responsible for my actions. It was the devil in my head. You see what I'm saying here?
Yeah, I see exactly what you're saying, and I agree with that. I think we need to be clear about, our responsibility in this, but we also need to mention the enemy's responsibility in this. I agree. We need to do both, though, for sure. Just doing one alone, I don't think is
No, I
wise.
got you. But that's true, brother. But Lumumba is educated and raised differently. I appreciate it. Shout out to my parents. Hi, mom. Hi, dad. Right. And the reason why I say this, I just think, and I'm gonna use the boxing analogy, as you all know, I used to box. I've shared that a number of times on my platform. Oftentimes, it's not about what the opponent is doing; it's about what we're not doing. And I just don't believe in giving white folk that much credit, the white supremacy that much credit. I don't. Right? The issue is we stop using our lateral movement, we stop pumping that jab, and we stop changing our levels and stepping over and hitting them with that counter hook. It's just the reality. They come forward with the same 1-2 every single time. If our dumbasses don't get in shape enough to what? Get out the way of those shots, that's on us.
I like how you put that. I agree with that.
It's not what they're doing, it's what we're not doing. It's the real. They're not responsible for the fact that in many numerous black households that black children watch more TV, hours of TV per week than any other racial ethnic group of children in the country. That ain't white supremacy's fault. That's our fault for not being intentional with how we raise our children. That's my perspective. But listen, we got a lot of people having a conversation in the chat. Tap in.
Yeah, brother JR, tap in. I want to hear your perspective on this.
Yes, please tap in. Be part of the conversation. You can use a pseudonym, as you all know. You can use a pseudonym. You do not have to. I repeat, you do not have to cam up. But definitely want to get some diverse perspectives. We believe in diversity of thought here at Lumumba Speaks. So we don't believe in alternative facts, but we do believe in diversity of thought. So please tap in, be part of the conversation. As you all know, you can't use a racial epithet of any kind, irrespective of a black person's behavior, political ideology, or place of geographic origin. And then, of course, last but not least, facts over feelings. But a desire, you are a big supporter of the channel. I appreciate you. I would love for you to tap in, give your perspective on this conversation. But to be line, you may be having some issues with Wi-Fi, but you could tap in with your cell phone. Sister Mary Shy, Sister Love Ash, the same goes for you all as well. Definitely want to get you all to tap in, be part of this conversation. And if you all are watching, if you do not know what we're discussing, we're talking about incentivizing dysfunctionality. We're talking about Metro Boomin, Steve Harvey, creating an initiative entitled Single Moms Are Superheroes. I want to get you all's perspective on what you all think about, does this incentivize dysfunctional behavior? Because we know children who grow up in a female-led single-parent household are exponentially more likely to drop out of school, have behavioral problems, become a victim of physical or sexual abuse, as well as become involved in the carceral state, also known as the criminal justice system. So with that being said, I'm gonna open it back up. I'm going to put the link in the chat once again. Tap in. If you're watching, thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button. I'm 1 subscriber away from 2 Gs. So please do that. And then, of course, last but not least, and most importantly, you do not have to cam up to be part of the conversation. So we're going to open it back up. And the link is now in the chat.
One thing I'll say is, I think, because me, I grew up in a single parent household. My mom raised me, and what I will say is I didn't feel whole until I came. It was trauma for me, for sure. It was terrible, you know. And not terrible as in like my father wasn't around. No, I'd see him like once a month. But didn't have that father figure to raise me. So I grew up even when I became, a teenager in my early 20s, I still had that trauma. And interesting enough, what helped me feel whole again was consciousness, was coming into African consciousness. That's what did it for me. So if we can, going back to what we were speaking about earlier, if we can give that to kids when they're young, you're gonna have revolutionaries right there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's what we need to do. We need to,
and we talk about,
regardless of the mother, we're not doing it for the mother. We're doing it for the kids. You feel me?
Well, so here's the issue once again, and I'm gonna sit this down. Big brother, big sister, I'm there. We're talking about young Simbas, you know what I mean? Something like that, absolutely. Saturday school is absolutely. But what you have to understand is, and this is just my personal perspective, because there are a lot of brothers out there who are like, hey, I just want to help kids because I grew up without a father. Women know that. And this is part of the reason why they choose to be irresponsible, because they know I can find some simp in their eyes to help me take care of my child. This is the reality.
Psychology.
Literally, they know this. I don't mind. I can have a baby with anyone. I can have a baby with a dude who is on death row. I can find some idiot who will come in and help me raise my baby.
Yeah, it couldn't be me. Damn sure couldn't be me.
Little, and then you really, I'm doing it for the kid. You're being taken advantage of. Because I remember there was Boyce Watkins had a chat, something on his channel where this woman went viral because she said I was going to go on a date with a guy, and I have a daughter who's like 4 years old, and I asked the guy if we could go through a drive-through so I could get my daughter a Happy Meal, and she was like, "Can you pay for my daughter's Happy Meal?" The guy said no, and they was like, "Well, wow, come on, man, it's just $5. Why couldn't you do that?" I tell you why. He was right to say no, because today is $5, next week is $50, a month from now it's $500. That's why. Because you're going to allow yourself to be taken advantage of. This is the reality. Because that woman who's a single mother, and I'm making some very strong and demonstrative comments, she don't see it the way you do. Because she was a revolutionary, she was a Pan-Africanist, she was African-centered, she wouldn't be in the situation that she's in anyway.
How about if she came to that consciousness like you and I did a bit later, and she was
Don't
already in
matter.
that situation?
I'm not.
You cold-blooded, son.
I'm telling you, bro, I don't do that shit under any circumstances. I don't give a fuck. You know what? This is what I tell them. If you came to that type of consciousness and now you understand what's going on, then go back and get with the father. Go back and get with the dad and have a family. If you're so enlightened and you know how to do things the right way, go back and be with the daddy. And stop putting your responsibility on everyone else in the community. Huh? And stop putting your responsibility on everyone else in the community. So we're getting a delay from you, brother.
No, I think the brother has this video playing on a TV or computer or something.
Okay, yeah. If you got us on in the background, you got to turn it off.
I'm muting.
Well, so sister love,
hear you, brother.
Sister Love Ass says, well, what if he's a pookie? So I guess the question is, okay, the sister has come into enlightenment, but the brother is a pookie. Yes, I'm gonna say what my father would tell me. You made your bed, you gotta lay in it.
That part.
Absolutely. You made your bed, because once again, it doesn't matter if the dude's a pookie, if he's a Ray, and we have to understand that when we have these conversations, they typically are made in bad faith, because these women will lead you to believe that when they were dating the guy, he was Barack Obama. And as soon as she had the baby, the guy turned into Suge Knight. That's not what's
Don't say
going on
Barack
here,
Obama. Say Garvey. Don't
right?
say. Don't
I'm
say an
sorry, but
enemy.
so he went
Obama's an
from being
enemy.
Marcus Garvey to Solomon Overture to Suge Knight. That's not what's going on here.
That's
If
a good
she chose to
analogy.
lay down and have a baby with a Pookie and a Ray Ray, then that's who she need to raise that child with. That has nothing to do with me. Because like it's not just undermining the father, it's undermining the institution of fatherhood. Because that if you engage in that behavior, by default, your behavior is stating that what? Fatherhood is something that is fluid. And it's not. Fatherhood is not fluid. I am my parents' only father and legal guardian. I'm the only one who is what? If I don't pay child support, I'm going to jail. If they turn out to be miscreants or criminals and don't do well in life, I'm the one that's going to be looked at, not the community. So we like to go back and forth and vacillate back and forth when it's convenient. But that ain't how things actually work. But Abiqualon, what say you?
Peace, family. I finally hopped on. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir. We hear you just fine.
Black
by the way-
African power, brother. Good to hear your voice.
You already know. And by the way, I just want to say I agree with everything you were saying earlier. The only point I was trying to make is we can't so much just focus on like the symptoms of trying to tell single moms like, oh, get it right. You're supposed to know better. We can't really do that because the situation, this has been going on for decades. The whole black family unit was removed. You feel me? They was taking the dads out the family. We already know what happened. They brought in the drugs, the guns, and everything else.
But I'm going to say this, and I don't mean to cut you off because
Right,
you
right.
always let me speak ad nauseum on your channel.
Right.
But I disagree with that a little bit. The fathers were removed from the home because the mothers chose to accept what? Money from the government rather than what? Money from the father. Let's keep this a buck here.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what happened. The women chose to go with the white man rather than their man. Let's be real about this.
Yeah, but let's be honest also. You already know they always come in the community undermining each other because a lot of black men was also following a lot of white women. Let's be honest, this was going both ways.
That is not true.
Yeah, that's a fact. A lot of black men was also doing the same thing.
Only 8%.
No, you know that
black men are married to white women.
No, that's currently
Brother JR, most brothers aren't. Most brothers aren't.
That is the highest number in the history of this country.
Now I'm saying though, black men was just not perfect in this whole situation. Yes, black women definitely did take that L. I admit to that. Everything you're saying, I agree with it. Trust me, I agree with it. But we also have to think critical and think about the history of everything and what's been going on. We know that they brought this feminist movement right now that's going on. This whole feminist movement right now is very strong in the community. That's influencing the whole community. And no matter how good of a parent that you are currently, the society is going to influence your kids. No matter how good. They have fun. They listen to music. They go to school.
This is what I'm going to say. Did any of you grow up watching X-Men, the animated series?
Right, definitely.
Okay, so my favorite villain was Apocalypse, right? And Apocalypse, right? He who never dies. He would say, I cannot be defeated, I cannot be harmed, I cannot be touched, all this good stuff, right? He would go on in Shakespearean English about how he is the bee's knees, right? And Apocalypse would go to all these different supervillains and say, hey, help me do X, Y, Z. And if you help me, I would give you A, B, C. And these villains would help him. And then they say, okay, give me my payout. And he would say, I'm not giving you anything. And they'd be like, but you told me. And what would Apocalypse say? And you were dumb enough to believe me. Same situation. If we're dumb enough to fall for the okie doke, if we're dumb enough to fall for feminism, that is on us.
See, I don't disagree with that. But right now, we're living in the belly of the beast. We're only 13% of the population. We don't have our own nation. We don't control, we don't make the laws. We don't control the school system. We don't control nothing around us. All the institution and infrastructure is literally controlled by them. That's the problem. We don't have no real power. So there's not much we can do right now. For example, our kids should not be, again, educated by them. We should have our own institutions educating our own kids. That's a big problem right there.
But brother, respectfully, what I hear is excuses. What I
are we doing about it? What are we doing about it?
What I hear is you telling your trainer, hey, he got a longer reach than me, and he got 2 inches height on me, and I can't get past his jab. And what the trainer's going to tell you to do is adjust fire, because there are the other racial ethnic groups in this country who are smaller minorities than us, but they have not drunk the Kool-Aid. What I hear is excuses. I hear is an excuse.
And what minority is that? What minority is that?
We could talk about Asians. We could
come on, brother. We know why though.
But brother Lumumba, they're not being directly attacked like we are.
Come on,
we can talk about Arabs.
They have a whole nation behind them.
We can talk about Arabs. We can talk about.
They have a whole nation behind them, and they literally is a whole different case for them. We can talk about the Mexicans as a whole different case. Black Americans are definitely in a unique position, and we know this. Black people globally.
Yeah.
So we have to the problem, to be honest, the responsibility is on us. We have to build infrastructures and institutions so we can lead them to so we can give them a different solution or a different option. But right now, we can't just sit here and complain and be like, oh, you got to do this. You got to know better, because they don't have the education. They don't have the conscience. You taught me this, to be honest, on my last live. You told me this. We have to be patient, because a lot of people, they still behind. You know what I mean? Most of us, we educated ourselves. We gained the knowledge ourselves, so we know better. But most, the majority of our people, they still historically illiterate. They don't know what's going on. They're just being influenced by the society and what's, the distractions and everything that's placed to keep us in the same position. So everything you're saying, I do agree with you. I cannot disagree, but I'm just saying we have to look at it entirely. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. And the worst part is when you quote me, right? That's the worst part. When you quote me to defeat my own argument. Shout out to you, right? Sister Mary, what's the word? And Brother Ghost, I hope you can tap in as well.
Well, hello everyone.
Peace, sister.
Welcome, sister. Welcome.
Hi. Yes, so what Steve Harvey said, I don't think single mothers are superheroes, because one, I think children should have 2-parent homes, and I just think that's dysfunctional to just say that. I just think it's dysfunctional for women to raise kids by themselves, especially when the creator made a man and a woman. I just feel like when the two come together, it's it really, I don't know. I'm just sorry. I'm just kind of all over the place, but I just think it's wrong. I just think it's wrong, and I don't think there should be single parent homes at all. And I just believe in 2-parent homes, because I grew up in a single parent home and I seen the dysfunction, and I didn't like it. I didn't like it, and I always wondered where my dad was and things like that. And I'm just, just saying how I feel, and that's why I'm waiting until I get married to have kids. I don't want my child to have to go through what I went through. And so that's just it. I do know my father, but I really needed him to be there, and it's just really sad that he, and it's not all his fault. It's my mom's fault too, but I can't just go on just blaming them. I'm 34 years old, and I just have to be careful and not make the same mistakes as my mom did. So that's all I have to say.
And I appreciate what you had to say. So I'm going to ask you a question, because you're someone who, from what you've shared, is very intentional with how you live your life. Have you lived your life? And I've kind of gone hard on the sisters on this episode, on this live. Have you ever had a man in your life who wanted to have children with you but didn't want to be married? Have you ever been propositioned in that way by a Black man?
Well, yes. I dated this guy from Alabama, and he wanted kids, but he did want to get married, but I wanted to be married first before I had kids, and I just didn't think that was the right way to go, just to have kids before just to have kids and not be married first. So eventually we went our separate ways, but yeah. So but he did wanted to have kids, and but wasn't even talking about marriage first, so
right. Okay.
Just had to
so
leave
we
that
do
alone.
see that sometimes there are brothers who are promoting this type of behavior as well.
Yes.
Got you. Okay. And I would argue that oftentimes what comes out of from children who grow up in these type of environments is they're taught not to respect masculinity or male authority. They tend to take umbrage with masculinity and male authority. I make the argument that that's something that tends to happen, unfortunately. So it's something to consider as well. I mean, in fact, I can recall there was a time I had to, get on my daughter a little bit about some things that, because it's a sense of entitlement. So we know as parents, is anyone here a parent other than myself? So I think I'm the only.
No.
Okay, so I'm the only parent. So oftentimes as a parent, part of your punishment or discipline in the child is you take things away from them, right? You might take away their allowance. But a child knows, hey, if you're paying child support, I'm going to get mine no matter what. So it can also create a sense of entitlement. So I think that's something to consider.
Yeah, I just like to add, I'm not condoning single motherhood or single parent. I don't condone that at all. I was just trying to paint the picture so we can notice what's actually going on. Because I
would just reiterate that I think our people are falling for the banana in the tailpipe.
Definitely.
That comes down. It comes down on. It's very. I always use this example. We're gonna go back to boxing. If I'm in a boxing match, right? If I am in a boxing match and I keep getting hit with the same punch over and over and over again, every round, does that mean that the guy I'm fighting is a great boxer, or does it mean that my defense is incompetent?
What do you do if you've never actually been training before and you don't know what to do?
Could you just answer it doesn't matter. Can you answer the question?
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you're right. Of course.
It means it doesn't matter if I trained it out. If I got my nail behind in the ring,
I don't know I'm in the ring. I don't know I'm in the ring. I'm just living life. I'm thinking, what's integration? What's racism? What's this? What's that? I don't know nothing about that.
And you're right. And it still makes the person incompetent. Even if you don't know anything.
Yeah, but
makes you incompetent.
Yeah, but there's a reason why he's that way, though. We all know that. There's a reason why he's incompetent. We all know that, right?
I would argue that there are external factors and internal factors.
Right. And both are affected by what? By the system. The whole family structure has been infiltrated already. Correct?
I would disagree because my household structure was not infiltrated by white supremacy.
But I'm speaking about the collective. We have to be fair, right? And not I can say the same thing also.
Here's the thing: the reaon why my family structure was not infiltrated by white supremacy is because we had a strong family unit.
No, you guys educated yourselves.
No. It was because my father decided what was right and what was wrong for our household.
Because
my dad is the one who said, this is what we're about, this is what we're not about. And I don't give a damn what they say on TV or in the neighborhood.
See, I agree with you. And I'm going to do the same thing when I have kids. But guess why? Because I know better. If I didn't know better, I'd just do the same thing because my dad didn't do the same thing. And I had to learn from that. I had to educate myself, learn from experience also. Yeah. So now I'm going to do better. I'm going to do difference because I know better. That's the big difference. You have to know that. You have to know what's going on. You have to you know what I mean? It's complicated. But I agree with you.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, yeah, I agree with that part because, people might look at me like, oh, she's going to be just like her mother, a single mother and all this stuff, blah, blah, that. But I'm not. I feel like I turned out to be a somewhat decent child, I can't stand when people just try to, make you just feel like, oh, because you belong to a single parent household, are you going to be like this? You're going to be that. I mean, that's not necessarily true. I'm not saying that it's not good to grow up in a single parent home, but I'm just saying don't say bad things about the kids oh, well, this kid might grow up to be this and that. I'm sorry, but that's not true because I
understand that. But
to be fair though,
statistically, more often than not, the majority of the time, that is what happens.
That's true. I was just about to say
the exception doesn't change, deviate, doesn't change the rule. We know this. We know this. 85% of all individuals who are in prison or jail grew up in a female-headed single-parent household.
That's true.
we know that exponentially the likelihood of a child being physically and sexually abused rises when the child grows up in a home with only their mom. These are facts.
Facts.
Because we know child molesters don't like to try to molest children who have a daddy at home because they know they're going to possibly be killed. And we know that the facts, the statistics show that the children who are molested tend to be molested by someone that the mom brought into the home.
Brother Lamont, can I add in a little bit? Do you think that most Black women know that literally like feminism and this whole movement was literally like, you know what I mean, was created, like was pushed on the Black community to cause all these problems? Do you think Black women know about this history? I don't think like most people are educated about this. They don't even know.
No, I know about that history. I do. I know about that history, but I do agree with Lamumba was saying, but I'm just saying that I don't know. I just heard those things like, people see my mom and then I have heard those things like, oh, she's gonna be like her mother, and then I proved them wrong, And so maybe I'm taking it personally because like, I mean, I'm not saying my mom's really, really a bad person, but I definitely don't want to be like her. I'm sorry, I'm just being honest. And maybe I'm just taking it personally, so I'll just be quiet then.
Well, it's quite all right though. We're happy that you're here, sister. But I'm gonna answer your question. One, I would argue that most people in the community do not know this, but I also would make the argument that most women in the community don't give a damn. Because for them, as long as I'm in power and control, I don't give a damn if I am competent, if I am doing a bad job. I don't care if I'm running us into the ground. As long as I'm the one making the decisions and not a man, it's cool with me.
And I also agree with you. Until they get old enough, they get to a certain age to where the men, all the options start coming in. They start reflecting and start realizing like, damn, all these decisions I made is just, it's not adding up to nothing. But I definitely agree with you.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go back to Brother Jabril when somebody had made a comment about, well, what if the sister, she came to consciousness, later in life. I see this a lot of times in our community, to where this woman had 4, 5, 6, 7 kids, half of them in prison, and then now all of a sudden I want to be Dr. Anna Julia Cooper. Take that shit somewhere else. Take that shit somewhere else. I'm
welcome,
serious,
sister.
man.
That's what I would say. I'd say welcome to the African Revolution. You cold-blooded, brother.
I'm
gonna tell you what I'm militant on. If you procreated with a non-African, then I'm just like Brother Lamumba on that. Other than that, welcome, family.
But I'm gonna tell you why I take that approach, because I know that's nothing but something that's temporary and is rooted in being a guilt-stricken.
Facts.
That's why.
And trauma.
Just like some people, hey, you know what? I mean, I caught a case. I'm looking at 20 years. Then all of a sudden they get into the church a little bit. They beat their case. They right back to partying and bullshit. That's why, like I said, I've been around long enough to know the real from the fake. And that's why I'd be like, man, get out of here. I already know what's really good.
How do you think we can solve it, though? How do you think we can stop it?
Well, I don't think we can stop it because we can't control
or minimize it.
Personal behavior. What I do think we can do, and it's something that I personally practice, because most people I come across, they say that I'm very judgmental. And I say, you goddamn right I am, because I make a judgment call every day regarding who I want to be in and not be in or part of my life. And so for me, hey, if I see you engaging in dysfunctional, racially disempowering, self-destructive behavior, I'm gonna be like a field goal kicker. Get you up out of here. Arms up, field goal.
But to play the other side, if I don't know no better, I won't even realize what you're doing. I won't even pay attention to it. I feel like if we had institutions to where these little kids are being raised with certain morals and principles and they actually know what's going on in reality, the outcome would be different. Because most of the people, like most of the adults right now, they're a little bit too, lost and gone. But the kids, so we have to focus on the younger generation and have these institutions in place, you feel me, these curriculums in place to where they can know the difference and know better. I feel like that's what
I disagree with you. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I've been part of those type of initiatives and institutions. And what I know is that If you have that child learning something that deviates from what that child is being learned in the home, being taught in the home, it's going to be a problem. I know from experience.
It worked on me though.
Because once again, the exception doesn't change the rule. And as we know, the ruin of a nation begins in the homes of its people, not in the community centers, not in institutions, not in programs and initiatives, but in the home. Brother Ghost, you tap in. I'm going to let you speak. And then after that, Brother Negus.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say, shout out to everybody just been listening for a little while. Everybody has some good points and perspectives. I think I'm pretty much in agreement with you here on this one today. I don't have too much counter arguments. Yeah, I mean it's definitely a big issue that we have right now. I do think there is some more awareness going towards it, and I do think there is some pretty strong pushback, coming in within our community from different sources. You could credit some of the spark to like a Kevin Samuels and certain people maybe, although I know there's been people talking about it long before him, but yeah, I mean, the good news is like, people are a little bit more aware. I think there is some pushback, but overall, I mean, it's definitely as Mary said, and I wasn't listening at the very beginning, but I'm sure Professor Lumumba, you probably said this too. Obviously like a two-parent household is going to be the best well, I mean, that should be obvious, I would think. For most people, that's going to be the best situation, a two-parent household. So, whatever we need to do or whatever we can do to get to that point is going to be the best thing. I think the biggest thing for me is like, if you can start off, and I realize if you already passed this point, it's hard to go back, but if you can start off, making a good decision, kind of like what Mary was saying, like being intentional about the situation that you start with, so that you're not having kids and procreating with just random, Pookies and Ray Rays or Pookishas and Keishas. Because once you get into that situation, obviously now you behind the clock. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I don't know. That's just what I think about it.
Go ahead, Brother Negus.
I feel with this conversation, I agree a lot with what you say, and I do think like overall I do feel overall a two-parent household is much needed. Any, once you when you have without, that's gonna handicap. But I think I still follow a lot with the what the other brother had said earlier about like putting roles between the community and the family household, like in terms of because I think you guys disagreed on the kid being raised by the community versus being raised in the household a little bit.
Yes, sir.
And I think personally I think that you need both in a sense, but not in a way neither should not saying it should negate the other, but there should be a balance of it. And I feel like we lack that.
Brother Negus, that's actually the point that I made after Brother Lumumba clarified, and I made it very clear that we need both. You can't have one without the other to raise fully developed children, in my opinion. So
Yeah,
we
yeah,
agree on
my
that.
bad. That's what I was trying to say earlier, that I was agreeing with your point when you said that earlier. That's what I was trying
Got
to
you.
say. My
Respect,
bad.
brother. Respect. No, you good. You good,
No
brother.
problem.
Go ahead, Sister Ash. Sister Love Ash, you can go right ahead. I know you've been waiting patiently. All right. Any other thoughts from anyone
I
else?
do want to push back on something you said when you
Uh-oh.
and Brother Bickerline were Brother JR were speaking. And you said how he came to consciousness. He's the essentially that's not the norm. Now I have to push back. I think most of our people come into consciousness later on. Um, they don't come into that within their household because let's be honest, the vast majority of our people aren't conscious. So
Right.
logically speaking, the vast majority of our people won't come into consciousness in their household. Like
Hmm.
from I'm not Brother Bikola and myself. I mean, you can even make an argument. Most of our revolutionary leaders, off the top of my head, gain this knowledge outside of their household, right?
This
So I
is true.
think the
Yes.
best way to do this, right? And that's not even the optimum way, because what you're doing is you're essentially flipping a coin, or maybe even flipping, let's say, a dice and hoping you get, get a one, right? Because it's not very likely you'll come to this consciousness. So what do we need? We need organizations and we need institutions to raise the consciousness of our people. If we don't do it that way, our people won't come to consciousness, the vast majority. So we need to build organizations, organize the masses of our people, and build institutions. That's where I'll leave that.
Got you.
Correct.
Got you. Absolutely.
I agree with that because I've learned a lot just from watching your channel that I've never learned from just being around a lot of, and I've been around like my uncles, my dad. I actually have my dad in my life, but like they're not as conscious. You know what I mean? They're more conscious in different ways. You know what I mean? Not when it comes to like our history, what's going on, politics. You know what I mean? So it's like that's why we need these institutions and organizations, like Brother Jabril was just saying. That was the point I was trying to make earlier. But I'll go ahead and let Sister Ashley, go ahead.
Yeah, we hope Sister Love Ash is able to go. If not, we are opening it back up to someone else to speak until she's ready to go.
This is a good topic.
I think she just tapped in. I think she just hit the
Yeah. I mean, all I was gonna say was marry before you carry, but then like when y'all started talking, then I started thinking about other stuff and like how the two brothers on the top right hand corner was saying like we need systems in place to help aid in what parents are already currently doing as far as like healthy relationships with their parents.
mhm. And so I can admit that that's some truth. We do want to promote and teach healthy lifestyles, healthy what a healthy relationship looks like. I may not agree with the theology and many of the teachings of the Nation of Islam, but it is something that they teach in their community. So that is something that needs to be done because your heart might be in the right place, but if you don't have the skill set, it can, of course, be detrimental to, of course, that relationship or the family unit. But I said what I said, and I stand on it.
Okay.
Oh man.
Hey, not to deviate.
And I'm just saying this because, like I said, I've been out here for a minute, right? And I've seen how manipulative women can be, particularly single mothers, and they would try to shame men into helping them raise their children. I've even seen women go on social media and say men who aren't willing to be stepdaddies are narcissists, right? So we see this type of entitlement taking place where, hey, I had a baby out of wedlock, I was being irresponsible, and now somebody need to come in here and help me take care of my child.
It's not entitlement. They scrambling.
Okay, so please unpack that for me.
So it's like them trying to survive. Like it's almost okay. It's like when black men say black women lack accountability. That's a prime example of that. Like instead of saying, okay, I messed up and I need to take accountability for my womb, I'ma just scramble to find, like you could be saying, a simp or whoever who's going to help me with my kid or my children.
Okay, and I appreciate you correcting me there. See, this is why we have to have the sisters in here so that sometimes they can let the brothers know, such as myself, when we aren't on point. And, of course, I respect the sister for correcting me. And I appreciate the fact that I was willing to be corrected. But this is what happens when we are in a healthy, African-centered environment and community. Ashe, Black Power.
Ashe.
And thank you for that as well, because I know we discussed offline like how people don't necessarily know how to agree to disagree.
Mm-hmm.
and how to have like healthy dialogue.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And I have no problem being corrected. I know I'm full of myself a lot of times. I'm into myself, but I do not have a problem being corrected. And so when she said scrambling, I think that's a great point because I never thought of it like that. But this is a person who's scrambling, trying to somehow make the best of what I dare say is a bad situation. So I definitely appreciate the education that Sister Love Ash provided for me there. We got about 15 more minutes. So I'm going to give everyone a chance to kind of make their final grandiose statement before we call it a quits for tonight. But I want to make sure that all of you tap in tomorrow because we definitely have a rather provocative conversation that we're going to have tomorrow, where we're going to have a conversation regarding patriarchy in the Black community. Is it a help or a hindrance to Black community development? So make sure you all tap in tomorrow. Let me check what time we're going to be starting tomorrow. That's going to be, drum roll please, 8. It's going to be 7 o'clock tomorrow, 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. We're going to be having that conversation regarding does patriarchy help or hurt the Black community. But once again, we're going to allow everyone to provide final thoughts before we log off today, this evening. So I guess we can start with Brother Jabril since you was the first one to tap in.
Yeah, I would say if you're an African, if you're in this panel, if you're listening to this video, look to join a revolutionary African organization fighting for the liberation of our people. These conversations are good. It's good to talk about the issues and dysfunctions we have so we can resolve them. But the place you resolve those in are our organizations, right? So join in revolutionary organization fighting for the liberation of African people. And I think even organizations, even this specific topic alone, I think organizations will be a great piece in helping prevent single parent households. For
Yes,
sure, no question about
absolutely.
it.
And I think
So,
also, if I could, they can help you
please.
unlearn negative and unhealthy forms of thought and behavior.
Agreed. Completely agreed. So yeah, I would say I always tell people organizations are the solution of all solutions. You want to talk about solutions, bring up solutions, but always bring up the solution of all solutions, which is organizing the masses of our people. Join an organization, right? So we talk about single parent households. We talk about the constant assault by our enemies, right? We talk about kids dropping out of schools. We talk about all sorts of things, mass incarceration, so on and so forth. All of that can be resolved within organizations when we get the masses of our people, including you, brothers and sisters, to join in a revolutionary African organization fighting for the liberation of African people. A BB Fahudie, brothers and sisters.
Brother Jabril said it all. So I'm just going to say peace, family. Let's focus on trying to gain economic, political, social, and cultural power. You feel me? Let's not focus so much on the symptoms of the problem and actually focus on the problem and how we can actually, feel me, solve and resolve the big problem. So, because once we do that, everything else is going to fall in place. Once we have all these institutions and organizations, like Brother Jabril just said, everything else is going to fall in place. We can't focus so much on just bashing the symptoms and the masses of our people that are still ignorant because they don't really know what's going on. We got to show them better. You know what I mean? But peace, family.
Sister Mary?
Okay, I just want to say thank you for having me on the panel. But yeah, I agree what everyone has said. I don't think a single parent household should be praised about. I think it should be looked down upon. I think two parent households is what we should be, striving for. I mean, it's a shame that we even have to discuss this, but I mean, we have to because it's a problem in our community. Um, I think sisters, I think in my opinion, I mean, because I took this course, I think they should like attend wife school, some type of wife school, especially if you grew up in a single parent home. I took a wife school course. I think they should just do, just I don't know, just find an elder in their community that's married, and just talk to women who were wives for a long time if they don't, know how to be a wife and things like that. I think they should do things like that. But yeah, that's all I have to say. But thank you so much for having me on.
No problem. And I hope you could tap back in tomorrow, 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, where we're going to be discussing, does patriarchy help or hurt the Black community?
Okay, yeah, I'll be on. I don't have to work that day.
Great. Brother Ghost. Ghostface killer, as they say, right?
Yeah. Got to get more up to speed on him. I don't know too much about Ghostface, but yeah.
What?
Wow.
Yeah, nah, like
I
I'm a
thought you
90s and 2000s guy, but I never really got into Ghostface like that.
Okay, yeah, he's nice though. He's nice though, yeah. The Pretty Tony album on the real though.
That's what everybody says, man. I don't know.
Supreme clientele.
Yes, sir. Supreme clientele. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look into him a little bit. I just remember playing him on Def Jam from what was it? Was that PlayStation or was that Nintendo? I don't know if y'all know what I'm talking about.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Def Jam Vendetta.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, no, I mean, good conversation, good points made by everybody. I do think it is an important conversation. I think although, it's a lot of conversation online, it's like a popular thing on like, Twitter or some different places where people say like stop having the same conversation. But the thing is, I do think it is important to have the conversation because you never know who the conversation is reaching, that it's actually affecting in a positive way, and not everybody is going to be in certain spaces and like certain physical spaces, internet spaces, or mental spaces to where they can receive the information. So I do think that these types of conversations are important, especially a topic like this where like they may not get it from anywhere else, because like around them, sometimes in our families we do have these people who are, like, as you can see with this, what the topic is about, promoting the opposite of this. So a lot of times that's what you're going to get, and that's what a lot of people are going to get. So if we don't talk about it, if the people who are conscious of the issue and don't present another side to it, then they may only get that side. They're not necessarily going to join up with some, organization or go seek out the information themselves. So I think it's a good thing to, talk about it. So great topic overall, and I guess I'll just leave it at that.
Appreciate you, brother. Brother Negus closes out.
All right. I'm thankful to be a part of this, and I definitely hope I can catch the one tomorrow. Hopefully, I can catch it before I go to work so I can be a little bit more in tune and involved. But I definitely think with this conversation, I think if I had to leave last words, my last words would be to make sure within this conversation we always try to look at the totality of everything, and also try to keep in mind, like, while we all agree the single parent household is not what we need for our community. However, we also got to look at, where it's at, and try to deal with have preventative measures, but also deal with it as it stands.
All right. Very good. Very good. Appreciate you, brother. Hope you all can tap in tomorrow. If you're watching, make sure you subscribe and the like button. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Until next time, y'all know what to do. Always bet on Black. Peace.